there is a moment most people have had. You're watching a movie, a character loses everything, gets broken down, and faces something they don't think they can survive. And something in you responds to it in a way that feels almost too personal. Not because it's a good story, because something in you recognizes it. The struggle, the fear, the feeling that the old version of you is falling apart, the not knowing who you're becoming yet. You have felt that, and maybe you're feeling it right now. And what if that wasn't just a story on a screen? What if every hero's journey ever told was actually describing something that happens inside every human being? Most people think movies are just entertainment, something to watch, or something to escape into. But if that were true, then why do certain stories stay with us for years? And why do people cry over fictional characters? Why do some movies feel weirdly personal? And even when they take place in a fantasy world, because something inside you recognizes them, not intellectually, but emotionally. For example, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Matrix, The Lion King, ancient myths, religious stories, fairy tales. They're different characters, different worlds, different details. But somehow, they all keep telling you the same deeper story. A struggle, a fall, a confrontation with darkness, then a transformation and a rebirth. And that pattern doesn't just repeat across every culture and every generation by accident. It repeats because it's describing something real, something that happens inside every human being over and over again. Think about almost every meaningful story that you ever connected with. The character starts in a normal life, comfortable, familiar, safe. Then something changes. A loss, a crisis, a conflict. A moment where the old life stops being enough. And suddenly, the old version of themselves just stop working. Then comes the part that most people recognize too well. A struggle. Fear, confusion, resistance, darkness, the desperate urge to go back to how things were. But eventually, the character is forced to face something inside themselves. Not just outside, but inside. But the thing they have been avoiding, the fear they never wanted to look at, the parts of themselves they didn't know was there. And by the end of the story, they're not the same person they were at the beginning. And that's not just good for writing. That's a map of how real transformation actually works. Because here is what most people don't realize. You're already living inside the story right now. At first, you live through familiar patterns, the habits, the reactions, your identity, the emotional defensiveness. You built that long ago, just like personality. And for a while, that version of you felt stable until life started breaking it apart through pain, loss, through heartbreak, through anxiety or conflict or crisis. And suddenly, the old version of you stopped working. And that's usually exactly how real transformation begins. Not because suffering is a punishment, but because life was forcing you to grow beyond who you used to be. And this is the part that most people resist, because people want stability, even unhealthy stability. People stay attached to familiar pain because it feels safer than the unknown. And this is why almost every hero fights the journey at first. They don't want to go because psychologically, change feels like death to the identity. And the identity will do almost anything to survive. This is why stories are filled with symbolic characters. The wise guide, the villain, the shadow, the temptation, the darkness, the hidden power within. Those aren't just random story elements. They're mirrors. They reflect real psychological forces happening inside every human being. The villain is not just the enemy out there. The fear inside you that wants you to stay small. The wise guide is not just the mentor in a story. It's the part of you that already knows what needs to happen. The darkness the hero walks through is the same darkness that you face when something inside you finally has to be looked at. And this is why stories keep repeating across culture and generations. Because human beings keep going through the same inner struggles. The details change, but the deeper process stays the same. Take Lord of the Rings, for example. Frodo starts as something small, comfortable, untouched by the darker parts of life. Then the ring enters his life. And from that moment on, he begins changing. But what makes this story so powerful is not the adventure. It's what the journey represents. The burden he didn't ask for. The temptation that gets louder the further he goes. The fears, the exhaustion, the slow corruption trying to take hold, the fight against darkness. Not just outside of him, but inside him. And people feel this story so deeply because they recognize it in their own journey, inside themselves. The thing that you're carrying that you didn't choose, the temptation to give up or give in, the exhaustion of the path, the part of you that slowly begins to change by what you're going through. That's not a fantasy story. That's a psychological map. And honestly, most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid this process, trying to go back to who they used to be, and trying to keep things stable, trying to silence the part of themselves that they know something has to change. But the journey doesn't just stop it because you avoid it. It finds other ways to get your attention through the patterns that keep repeating, through relationships that keep breaking down the same way, through anxiety that just won't go away, through a life that looks fine on the surface but feels hollow underneath. The story keeps going, whether you're consciously participating in it or not. And transformation begins the moment that you stop trying to escape it and you start asking, what is this trying to show me? Because awakening is not just feeling spiritual, it's seeing yourself clearly. The fears, the wounds, the patterns, the conditioning, the unconscious reactions, drawing your life from underneath. And once you truly see them, you begin changing, just like the hero changes. So maybe the reason these stories affect you so deeply is because something inside you already knows that you are not just a person that things are happening to. You are someone in the middle of a transformation, and the struggle that you're facing right now, the fear, the resistance, the feeling that that old version of you is breaking apart, that's not evidence that something is wrong. That's the journey. And the hero was never defined by how easy the path was. They were defined by whether they kept going. You are not lost. You're in the part of the story that most people never even make it through. And that changes everything.